All right. Well, welcome everyone. John here for Big Dreams Travel with Lisa.
Hey.
And we are going to just discuss. We thought it would be good to kind of discuss a little bit for some of you our travel plans for 2021. We are going to just discuss. We thought it would be good to kind of discuss a little bit for some of you our travel plans for 2021, because obviously 2020 was a crazy year. Probably for most of us, not as much travel as we wanted to do or as much as we normally do. And so we just kind of wanted to discuss what are we planning in 2021, since it's going to be probably different than most years, but hopefully we're going to be able to get back to some of the travels that we all love. And so just kind of discuss some of those things that we have planned. And as we do that, maybe hit on, how is travel going to look in 2021 on these different trips we're going to go on, or as Lisa and I were talking about, these may be things that we're thinking about going on. We're not may not necessarily be in the 100% category yet, because I don't know that any trip is in the 100% category for the current pandemic and situation we got going. But hopefully, these are some things that we get to do, and we would love to hear what you all would do in the comments, or certainly contact us if you need help with one of those things. So, Lisa, I'll just kind of start. We are looking, it's one of those deals we haven't done really a big family vacation in almost 2 years now, just because of the way school falls with our young kids. We haven't taken them out of we don't typically take them out of school to go on trips, and so it's really been the summer of 2019 since we've done anything major. We did some smaller things this past summer, just closer to home, because that's what was available during the pandemic situation, all those things. But so we're really itching to get to do something,
Yeah.
and all those things. I know, like many people out there, we've got airfare, we've got Southwest credits burning a hole in our pockets that we want to
Mhm.
use. Southwest they've been great throughout all this,
Yeah.
in allowing you to use what you've paid for future trips. And I think, Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's still through middle of the year 2022 that you
Mhm.
have to use
Yep.
most of those credits from things that occurred from last summer. And so, we're really looking at something to do with those. Um, and so we've been looking at a Universal Orlando trip. Our kids are a little older at this point. We got an 8 and a 5-year old, and so we've kind of avoided Universal just a little bit. But I think our 5-year olds finally met the height requirement on a lot of the rides there. And so, we've kind of been looking into that option. I think one of the things, and Lisa, we can kind of talk first about how airfare or how airlines are affected during this pandemic. And I'll let you kind of maybe talk a little bit about your experiences and what
Okay.
you've done working with clients. But I know for us last summer, that was one of our just initial things that caused us to cancel a Disney trip last summer. Even when Disney reopened late in the summer, the airfare and traveling by air was probably one of the most concerning things to a lot of travelers that we hear. What have been the developments in that, do you think, or that we've seen recently?
Well, I have a friend who works for Boeing, and so he is constantly keeping me updated on the state of affairs as far as the airlines and the air that people are breathing. And really, at this point, the air on airlines is probably the cleanest air you can be breathing right now, because they've upped their game so much with their purification and their filtering systems on the airlines that um it's probably the best place to be as far as germs circulating in the
Sure.
air. um and like, I don't know all the technical stuff, but he has sent me article after article from Boeing just saying how their jets have adapted and adjusted to this. So it's put a lot of clients at ease, the last couple of months compared to the first few months, that the air on the airplanes is is good. It's okay. It's safe. Um, I can't remember how many times they say that air is circulated outside and um, from the cabin air to the outside air. And so that's put a lot of my clients at ease. They feel like they're good to, go on the airplanes. And of course, the masks are still required. I know that most of the airlines have lifted their middle seat booking policies. So I know Southwest did theirs December 1st. And they've also said, if you're not comfortable with this, we'll book you on a different flight later, for no charge. But so the flights we flew were pretty full. Um, and that's what I'm hearing from a lot of my clients who have been traveling, is that the flights are full and getting fuller. Um, and like, I had clients today who missed their flight. They missed their connection in Dallas, and they were able to hop right on the very next one, um, flying standby. So they were really excited. But I think people are becoming more comfortable with flying,
Mhm.
as the airlines have adapted and adjusted their filtration system. So it almost makes you wonder, why weren't we doing this in the first place?
Yeah, I
But
think we recorded something several months ago, Lisa, about what travel was going to look like in the future, and we actually listed some things. What are some of the things that may come out of this that may
right,
be a good thing even for
yeah,
down the road, and
might as well. Yeah,
that may certainly be something.
yeah,
If that air keeps getting filtered, that's great to hear.
yeah,
Just as as we're kind of looking at traveling with our family and with kids,
right,
and that's good to hear. And I've heard what you have, that the travel, or the fullness of these flights is kind of ramping back up. But it's good to hear that I think everything we've heard about in airports and all that has become safe.
right.
Um, you know, Lisa, our family went skiing over Christmas break here, and I've been talking with my family about that. Oh, or is the ski resorts going to shut down, or are these places going to shut down again? And I really think I think it would be a big thing would have to happen for that to occur, because I think so
Right,
many of these places at this point, they've got all of these protocols in place
right,
that last March and April and May, when everything shut down, none of those protocols were in place. Those companies and businesses didn't even know what those protocols were.
right.
And so now they've developed all these things, and so they think they're able to do all these things much more safely.
Yep.
So we're looking at that Universal Orlando trip. I
Okay.
think my wife and I did that a couple years ago. We
Mhm.
love Universal, and I think our kids are finally to that age, and so that's one of the things we're looking at. Um,
Nice.
what what do you have planned? Maybe some point this year.
Well, I've got a pretty full list, and hoping all of them will come to pass. I'm supposed to be in Jamaica in April, so I'm really looking forward to that. I know that the entry requirements for Jamaica still right now require a negative COVID test. So I'm sure that'll still be in place in April, but I'm looking forward to going to Secrets, Montego Bay, or St. James, one of the two. I can't remember. But I'm going there in April. And then I
And
plan.
Lisa, let me ask you there. So that's something, one of the things that I think we've been one of the if there is something that we're seeing some interest in from clients, it is resorts in
Right.
the beach resorts, some in the Caribbean, quite a bit in Mexico, because
Yep.
Mexico stayed pretty open
Yep.
to Americans. But maybe just that's something important for people to know, and of course our agents will help advise on this. But really make sure you know the current requirements for those places you're going, whether a COVID negative test is
Right.
required,
Right.
whether you take one upon arrival,
Right.
whatever that may be. And so I know you've kind of thought about that, and I'm sure you've had some clients deal with that.
Right. And each island has a different protocol. That's why, most of them are a negative test upon entry. Some are within 5 days, some are within 7 days, but they all also have requirements like where your tests can come from. And rapid tests are generally not accepted, but they are accepted in some islands. Some places you have to upload your results. Some islands you can just carry with you. So it is, very important that if you're looking into one of those, that, you've got an agent working with you who knows how to advise you properly on that.
And you were talking about Jamaica, Lisa. I think that's one of the nations, or one of the islands down there, that they have a website set up,
Right.
that I think you upload that test result. You have to get some sort of a voucher or something that you print off and you present
Right.
when you get to the airport. So
Yeah.
they really seem to have a pretty organized process in
Right.
place,
Yeah.
where you submit all this stuff online and then it gives you an email back with your voucher to get in.
Right. Right.
And so again, that stuff is changing almost on a weekly basis,
Right. You,
probably
yeah.
as everything else during this time. And
Right.
so you really have to do your homework, and that's where we can help
Say it.
as agents. But I think there's obviously a lot of resources out there
Yeah.
to do that.
For
So
sure.
I'll let you continue
No,
there.
you're good. Um, I'm planning to be in Walt Disney World on their 50th birthday celebration in October. Um, that is on a Friday, however, so my son, it will be his senior football season. So I will either go that week before and be in Magic Kingdom that morning and head home that afternoon, or I'll actually fly out that day after this on the second. I just want to be there for a couple of days for that grand celebration. I know they'll celebrate for probably a year or so. Like Disneyland's Diamond celebration, they celebrated for a year and a half. So, but I just kind of want to be there for the festivities. And then my husband and I are hoping to go to Antigua to visit a sandals resort there. I have had many clients there over the last couple of months, and I have just kind of fallen in love with it and have decided that's my next Caribbean destination that I need to visit. And then our family is planning a grand um, Walt Disney World Universal trip between Christmas and New Year's. Um, so that's what's kind of on the books. And of course, I'm always open to go anywhere that arises. So,
Sure. Right now, if you get the chance, you better take advantage of it if you're people like us who really enjoy doing that. And
right,
I think you mentioned obviously a couple Disney World trips that you have planned. Of course, Disneyland in California not open yet as of
right.
time of our recording.
Hmm.
Hopefully, we see that changed at some point, mainly for the sake of the
Yeah,
the employees and the cast members out there,
right,
so that they have a job to return to.
right,
But we're planning a Disney World trip this summer. As Lisa, we've talked. We had a big vacation plan this past summer. We had annual passes purchased. We never activated those because we never went. Luckily, with annual passes, if you never activate them, they're good for 10 years from the date of purchase, or you have 10 years actually to activate them. Um, and so we're not out any money. We're just kind of sitting on those. Hopefully, things are at a point to where we have a trip planned for this summer. We've got hotel reservations and those types of things made, and so we're looking forward, of course, to getting back. Um,
hmm,
you know, Me and you have talked, and we've had clients looking, and there's some parts of the protocols that we're all not crazy about.
right,
Disney World is obviously still requiring face coverings 100% of the time.
right,
When you're moving around, I think the only exception is if you're sitting down or stopped
right,
eating or drinking. They won't even let you walk down the path with a water bottle in your hand
right,
and remove your face covering to drink it. Which I understand their point. That's certainly something that people would do, and
right,
something I would do if that was because it's hot in Florida
right,
most times of the year. Even this in the wintertime, it can be. You've got to stay hydrated there, so that's a factor to consider. Also, Lisa, we've talked about at Disney World. Fast passes are not happening right now.
yep,
Um, Character dining experiences are not happening in their normal format. There
right,
are there are a few limited places. Garden Grill in Epcot is doing a kind of a very modified character
right,
meal. The new Topolino's Terrace at Riviera is doing a modified character meal, but not a lot of options on that. Of course, buffets are not happening right now. We talked about that in our episode a few months ago. What are the future of buffets? And I think none of us know at this point, but
right,
they've turned some of those into family style dining. And still several resorts that at the time we're recording this that are not even taking bookings. They're still not open um, after the majority of the closure still from this past summer.
yeah,
Um, for instance, the All Star Value Resorts, none of them are open at this point. The All Star Movies Resort is about to open in a couple months, and so hopefully those things stay on track, and Disney
yeah,
can work things back in And so that's what we're planning this summer. Any more thoughts from you? And I know you just got back from Disney World with all these protocols in place. So kind of talk to us about some of those protocols that I mentioned, and how they
Okay.
affected. How did they affect your trip?
Well, the main one probably were the mandatory face coverings all the time. And, it was annoying. Obviously, nobody likes to have that wrapped on their face, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Um, and though Disney is very, very strict, and they would always kindly remind you to pull your mask up, um, we only had one encounter with kind of a grouchy cast member as far as the masks. But it's kind of just like it's not necessarily an intentional thing, but it's just like you sit down to have a drink and you get up and you start walking again and you forget to put the mask on because it's not like, ingrained in you. Um, but you're like, oh man, and pull it up. And so, um, it wasn't that big of a deal. We were there. It was a short trip. We were there 3 full days, and just one of the days it got into the 80s, and so the mask became a little bit more annoying because it was humid and it was warmer. The other 2 days really didn't phase us at all. It was probably in the low 70s, and it was perfect, and so the mask didn't bother anybody. The social distancing and the lines, they've got lines wrapped around everywhere. When we got in line for the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, it was all the way back into Toy Story Land. So, and that was just like a 40-minute wait. So, it wasn't necessarily a long wait time, but it felt like we were going to be there for 3 hours. But it moved. And in fact, I don't even know if we waited 40 minutes. It may have been closer to 30, because they've got everybody spaced out. And that's how a lot of their big main attractions are. They've just got these lines that go on forever, but they move pretty quickly. They did have, we rode that particular ride just with our family, so they didn't add anybody to us like they would if on a single rider line. So they're not doing those right now. But a lot of the rides, some of them had the plexiglass, some of them didn't. Um, and so we did notice that they're starting to put more and more people in the cars or in the boats or whatever. So that was nice, kind of sped things up a little bit. Um, Mobile ordering for your quick service um, meals, sometimes it was kind of frustrating to like, oh man, I didn't order my food. So we would have gotten to the place, then we had to sit there and have to do our mobile order instead of mobile ordering ahead of time while we, and spent that time because you still have to wait for it. Um, but once we kind of got the hang of it halfway through, we're like, oh, let's order and then we'll walk over there. So, I mean, it was kind of nice just to go up and pick up your food and go sit down. Um, the full menus aren't available at every restaurant, but there was still plenty of stuff. And um, let's see, I mean, it was really convenient, really. Instead of standing in line, if you could remember to do it before you got there. I think the hardest thing was at the resorts. Like we stayed at Art of Animation in a family suite, and it was all mobile ordering at the resort food court as well. But like when I would get back at night, I just wanted a cup of coffee. But one night I was able to get one. One night she let me get one, and then another night they wouldn't let me purchase it because I didn't mobile order it. I was like, I just want a cup of coffee. So that was kind of annoying. I couldn't just get coffee. But so
And
that was,
Lisa, do you guys do the refillable mugs?
we did not do them this time
Okay.
because of the way they're doing it. You basically buy the mug,
Uh-huh.
and then they give you cups, like in a paper cup. They give you a refill, then you have to pour it in your cup.
Okay.
And because there's no self-serving right now,
So you take your
um,
mug to the machine. There's a person there working.
right,
Do they
and they
scan?
fill it
They
into a paper cup and hand you a paper.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And we just decided we Instacarted some groceries and got some pop and water for the room instead of doing the mug. Even though we all love the mugs, and we were going to buy a couple, But then once we saw how it was going, we thought that's probably not what we want to do. But there were lots of families who did it. Um, so, but I would think the resort eating was probably the most frustrating of all of it. Just because you couldn't just go get something. If you wanted a snack, you couldn't just go get a snack. You'd have to order it, and then everything is so limited in those food courts. But in the parks and at Disney Springs, dining was great. We had a chicken guide for the first time, and oh my goodness, super yummy chicken, super good chicken. Um, but yeah, so probably the thing that was annoying most was the inability to just have that convenience of the
Sure.
food court. So
And I think you hit on, most of the major protocols that are in place for in the parks and in the resorts. You do have to have your temperature scanned to get into the
yep,
park. I think they've got that working
very smooth.
very quickly and efficiently. The
Yep,
new bag check or
right,
lack thereof,
right,
the security screening, I guess you would call it now.
right.
I
It's
I
so
know
nice.
that's super simple. I think all you have to take out of your bags is metal objects or umbrellas. Is that
Yes,
pretty
and
clear?
like I got buzzed going into Hollywood Studios and Magic Kingdom because I had 3 battery packs in my bag. I had mine and my 2 of my sons.
Mhm.
And so I got beeped because I guess I had too much. So the next day we went to Epcot, everybody carried their own in and none of us got beeped. So the guy told me, he's like, it's probably all these battery packs that's buzzing
Right.
you. So it was really nice not to have to open your bag, pull all your stuff out, let him go through.
Sure.
Um,
That
so that was really handy.
that was oftentimes, back pre-COVID. That was maybe the part of the day you dreaded the most was that
Right,
security line,
right. And do I
to
really need a
the bag
bag? Could
checks.
I make
Right.
it without a bag?
Right. So, well,
So
that's all good to hear, and I think, again, I think Disney has made a lot of accommodations so that they can be open, and so that
right.
they can stay open.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
and I will say, we loved the character cavalcades and the pop-up parades. Personally, I hope they keep that format because it was so nice to just not have to take an hour to 2 hours of your day
mhm.
to scope out a good seat,
Right.
and some people do, some people don't. But like a Christmas parade, we would like to see that. So that's one we would usually wait for.
Right.
Um, but they would just pop up and they would happen, and they were like, sometimes it was one float or
Yep.
one car, sometimes it was two or three, sometimes it was five or six, just kind of depended. And they
Sure.
would go through, and like at Magic Kingdom we must have seen the Christmas one 3 or 4 times throughout the day
Yeah.
in different parts of the park. So it was so nice, got great videos, got great pictures, did selfies as they passed, that kind of thing. um but then we were done, and you
Yeah.
just carried on with your day, and I just loved it.
I think it's kind of cool how they're happening even in the parks that don't typically have parades. They're happening
Right,
in
like at
Epcot. They're
Epcot,
happening
yeah.
on the boats in Animal Kingdom, and so
Yes, those are so cute.
all those stuff I agree is
Yeah,
really cool. I'm going to kind of the one major thing we haven't talked about at Disney yet, and this is an area where if you're working with an agent or something, you're really helped with their expertise because you do have to make not only do you have to have park tickets
right,
or an annual pass to get in, you have to make a reservation for the day you're visiting the park
right,
currently. Right now, I think that system is available through September of this year.
right.
We don't know if that's going to get extended, if it will, or when it will. But if you're traveling this spring or summer in 2021, you
Mhm,
do have to make reservations. I've made a park reservation for every day of our trip this summer and had
right.
no issues whatsoever
Yep,
with a resort reservation. I
right.
know if you're not a resort guest and you're an annual pass holder, I think they've had a few issues at times, maybe specifically with Hollywood Studios, just
Right,
because of the new
mainly.
stuff there. But I don't think resort guests or ticket holders
Mm-mm.
have had much of an issue getting the days they wanted at
Right,
specific resorts. And so just be aware that's something you've got to do is make those reservations online on
yep.
your Disney World account. Of course, a travel agent can help you plan those things out. It's a pretty easy process.
It's very easy.
Really, it's just as easy as making fast passes or dining reservations, all from the same account.
Yep,
And so, super simple as long as you make sure and do those things.
right.
Um, and then the other thing is, Lisa, you were able to snag that Rise of the Resistance boarding
Yes.
group at Hollywood Studios. That's
Yes.
the newest attraction in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge there at Hollywood Studios. It is only, you can only ride it if you have a boarding pass or a boarding group for that ride. If you're a resort guest, Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, they open at 7 a.m.
Yes.
each day.
Yep.
If you're going to Hollywood Studios, you have to have a reservation for Hollywood Studios to be able to
Right.
get that pass or that
Right.
boarding group. And
Right.
but if you're on property in a resort, you can start at 7 a.m.
Yes.
getting that. If you're
Right.
not on property, they have another window that it's at 1 p.m.
Right.
That you have to do. Lisa, I think you got it on the Disney Wi-Fi.
Yes.
I've heard of many people have one member of your travel party on the Wi-Fi on their phone, somebody else logged into your account on your cell service.
Right.
Um, you just kind of never know which one's going to be fastest based on where you are and all those
Right.
things. And so, but that is something you do have to do, and that's the only ride Disney right now is doing a virtual queue for,
Right.
is Rise of the Resistance. Um, Lisa, I know you probably want to talk about the ride itself.
It was so
I
great.
know we were. I've heard great things, and we haven't been there yet, so don't spoil it for me.
Oh, no
I
spoils.
feel like for like
So
a
good.
year for like a year and a half now, I've been watching YouTube videos, and I have to fast forward through that
Right.
because
Yeah.
of all that's happened. We haven't been able to go,
Right.
but those are the reservation things. So I think we've covered Disney World well, and that's kind of our other trip for this year. And you've mentioned some of your things to all inclusives. Obviously, those are big hits right now, and we've talked about some of those. The only thing we haven't touched on, Lisa, is cruising.
Right.
I don't think either one of us have a cruise planned at this point for this year.
No.
There's a reason why, and I'll let you kind of close us out here on this show with what's the state of cruising right now.
Oh man. I mean, if we only knew. Unfortunately, our favorite cruise lines have extended closures and cancellations. I know Royal extended theirs for the most part through the end of March, and there are some that have extended into the summer. Um, everyone's hoping. I have clients who are set to go in April on the Disney Wonder to the Mexican Riviera. Um, they've got their fingers crossed, but I just don't know if that's going to happen. Um, so we're just waiting. I know that we're seeing more cruise ships being moved back to their ports, so that's kind of fun when we get photos or videos of a cruise ship pulling in. That one of my favorite comedians that I let's see, I think I saw him on a Norwegian ship, but he does a lot of royal ships as well. He put on his Instagram that he was contacted about his availability calendar for the ships. So I was like, oh, that might be good news too. So they're at least thinking of entertainment. But there's been no definites from anybody. And we're just hoping and waiting and thinking of all the crew members that they've had to take home overseas to the various nations. Um,
I think we're all hoping that we at least hear something maybe a little more definitive than we've
right.
heard.
Yeah.
And I realize they probably don't know
Right.
at this point either. I think at this point the earliest we could see a cruise occur is April 1st.
Right.
I'm certainly not making any predictions, and there's 0% chance that I know what I'm talking about that it would be April 1st. I'm just saying that's
Right.
probably the earliest possible date
Yeah.
we would have at this point.
Right.
And Lisa, you and I've talked. I think even if cruise lines get clearance to cruise at some point, they probably have a multi-month process of doing
Right.
some test sailings. I think what crew members may be on it. I know um, you would love to go as an agent.
Right.
Sometimes they do ask agents to go and be on those test sailings, and so
Right.
we're going to have to see a some test sailings and those types of things before they can actually open cruises for sailing
Right.
again. Just
Right.
because they're not able to test all these things right now,
Right.
land-based places are.
Right. Right.
Obviously Disney did some testing during the
Yep.
downtime because they're here land-based. Well, where those ships are, they can't do that, and so That's why I think cruising is going to be the last thing we see come back
Right.
around. But hopefully we start to see something on that. We've seen some
Yes.
signs that they may be starting some of those, but again, I think it'll be a multi-month process just to get them, once they get
Right.
clearance, just to get them to the point where they can
Absolutely.
sail. So, well, Lisa, anything else to add about 2021 and that you've thought of as we've talked, and maybe getting back to
Well,
traveling?
no, I'm excited, and I have a lot of clients who are excited, and there are some really, really great deals right now. Um, I right now there are. I don't know how long they'll last because I know the
Hmm.
industry is going to try to recover some of what they lost. Um, but it's always kind of easier and sometimes less expensive to book early. I know it is with Disney, and sometimes with some of those Caribbean destinations as well. So if you feel like you're ready to travel and time is good for you, you know, now's a great time. There are so many great offers going on right now. I have encouraged every client I have since the reopening of the world in July to add that travel insurance because it helps so much. The supplier suggested insurance makes things easier. You can always do a third party. Like I had a client, a group of 4 people or 4 families leaving today. Um, one of them came down with COVID. He was the only one of the party who didn't buy the insurance. So he's kind of stuck. And I've been fighting and working really hard to see if there's anything I can do for him, um, so he won't lose all of his money. But it just makes things easier because you don't know when a nation may close down or they may change their protocol, or your job may say you have to quarantine for 2 weeks when you get back. And, things might change from the time you book your trip until the time you travel. But if you have that insurance on there, it's going to save you so much time, headache, and money. So it's really super valuable right now, um, going forward, to put that waiver on your trip. Extra $150 is not gonna. It's gonna save you so much in the end in case you have to use it. So,
Yep,
I think if
I
you're
would
ready,
assume.
get out there and go.
Yep, I would have said the same thing. Insurance has been a lifesaver to many. Most vendors are really trying to do a great job of allowing you to
Right.
move your trips into the future, or
Right.
some form of that, rather than you taking a total loss.
Right.
But again, they can't. They can only deal with what they can deal with.
Right.
Some of the things are in their control, and some of those costs are not.
Yep.
Airlines and those type are an example of things that once it's paid, it's paid, and not all airlines are going to work with you on giving money back because they thought they had that seat sold.
Yep.
And so that's where the travel insurance comes in. The vendors are really doing a nice job right now of trying to make things right and let you move, but there's always the possibility of something creeping in
Right.
that they can't just change, or the money they can't get back for you, and that's where that insurance can come into play.
Mm.
On top of all the reasons to have insurance to begin with.
Right. Exactly.
Certainly, when traveling internationally, we recommend that any time
Yeah.
pre-COVID.
Right.
That was a recommendation, and so certainly something to keep in mind. Well, that'll do it for today. If you guys
Okay.
need help planning your vacation here throughout 2021 or even beyond, we are here. Visit bigdreamstravelusa.com and get hooked up with one of us, and we will get you planning your next great vacation. Thanks.
Awesome. Bye.